We are here with Jim, the owner of this 2004 Carrera 4S. It's got about 59,000 miles on it. Jim's question is his car eligible for an IMS bearing replacement? There's lots of stuff that you can read online. You can go to LN Engineering. They have a whole entire list of what you should be inspecting. You should be, pulling the spark plugs, looking for bore scoring, inspecting the oil filter, looking at timing chain, crankshaft position angles with an interrogation of the DME. What we do here is a little bit different because you can spend $1,000 to inspect to see if you're ready for an IMS bearing, or you can do a simplified approach as long as the oil filter has enough miles on it. What we'd like to see an oil filter with like 7 or 8 or 9,000 miles of oil run through it. This oil filter, 3 years old, Jim said, and it has 4,000 miles of engine oil run through it. So I've removed the oil filter from the car already. What we did, this is the center of the oil filter, and this is the top and bottom. And I basically just cut these off with a razor blade. We're going to inspect inside here to make sure there's nothing big that's happening inside there. Same thing with this. And then we take the oil filter and we stretch it out across the workbench, and we make sure, it's kind of long. It's like probably 4 or 5 feet long. And we're just looking for anything large or metallic inside it. I hardly see any pieces. Like you can see this piece right here. Like, what is that piece right there? It's a little piece of, it's almost looks like kind of like paint. It's white. First question is it magnetic? You can kind of push a magnet up against it. It's not magnetic. It could be some old sealant that's come off. So there's the things that you mainly will find inside here are little tiny bits of brown chunk, and that's plastic timing chain guide. So how many bits of brown chunk are you finding? And that's going to tell you if your timing chain guides are going bad or not. This filter has almost no little brown chunks. That's good. I've seen them where there's a lot of brown chunks. We're looking for brown chunks of plastic timing chain guide. We're looking for anything shiny that would represent metal. Isn't shiny like the white piece. There's another piece over here I'll show you that could be like sealant. There's like some little tiny bit of sludge down there. So see that little black, little sludginess down there? That's what the filter's trying to filter. It's fine, nothing, no big deal. What you want to do is you want to look deep down in the crevices. That's where the stuff hangs out. And then towards the bottom of the filter. All the heavy stuff falls toward the bottom. You see another one right there. That's kind of like a brown black right there. That's timing chain guide material. Again, there's very little of it in this engine. You're always going to have some of it because the timing chain's constantly riding on it. That's an interesting piece. I don't know what that is right there. Some sort of a sealant, just debris that it picked up. That's what the filter's for. So then what we're going to do is just make sure that there's nothing big down. You want to just take your finger and kind of open each of these up. So after inspecting the top and the bottom of the filter and all the center media here, I don't see anything big enough to condemn this engine or say that it's ineligible to have the IMS bearing replaced. So this is the quick and dirty, spend 10 or 15 minutes cutting the filter open, inspecting it, and looking at it to see if this car is eligible for an IMS bearing. The answer is yes, green check mark, it's eligible for an IMS bearing. We now have the IMS bearing removed, so the automatic transmission is out of the car now. This is the back of the engine. Here's the crank seal, and here's where the IMS bearing was. This is getting a brand new LN Engineering IMS bearing. While the transmission is out, you want to inspect things like transmission mounts. Now this one's really bad. You can see how, look inside there. It's completely torn, and you can see the entire mount just completely walking side to side, right? So this thing's totally wasted. It's gonna get a new transmission mount. Same thing with the Guibo. The Guibo is a little bit bad. It's got some cracks in it. So here's the front drive shaft. It's pretty light on this car, but it's got some minor cracks on this Guibo. Now is definitely the time to do it. It's not as bad as a transmission mount, but it's still, it's slightly bad. So here is the IMS bearing that's in Jim's car. We can inspect it a couple different ways. Like right now I can kind of hear and feel for it. It feels smooth. That's a good sign for the engine. It means the engine is good. There's no metal in it. We're gonna check the races over here. We're gonna remove the seal on this. The reason we're gonna remove the seal is we're gonna see how much oil penetrated through the seal, which it shouldn't have because it's a sealed bearing, but it sits in an oil bath. So we're gonna remove this and just basically see how much oil comes out of it. There is the seal removed here. And then look at, so see all this oil that's in here? There shouldn't be any oil in there because it's just a grease seal. So if you look, I'm trying to hit that towel, there's tons of oil just coming out of this thing. The seal failed, oil completely penetrated through the seal into the bearing. The problem with that is that there's no fresh oil lubricating this bearing all the time, which that's what it needs. We're installing the Single Row Pro. There's no seal there. On the back side, there is a seal. The reason why there's a seal on this side is so oil can flow into the front, not bounce through the seal, and then fill the shaft with oil. It's gonna go into the front of the bearing right here. The bearings are gonna wash the oil through the race, and it's just gonna be constant lubrication. Oil is just gonna constantly flow through here. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut the bearing apart. Always wear your safety glasses. And we're going to inspect the outer race right here. And what we're looking for, so this is a single row bearing. So this is what the inside of a single row bearing looks like, right? This is just one row of bearings. This is all very nice and polished all the way through. No pitting, no galling, no flaking of the hardening. This side of the bearing is very good. Now let's check out this side of the bearing. And we're looking for the same thing. We're looking for a nice polished edge all the way around there. It looks very good. So this bearing, the outer race is good. Let's cut this guy one more time here. Open this bearing cage up like so. Pull this guy out. And there we've got that. So the balls in here all look very good. We don't see any galling or pitting or anything. One's damaged from the tooth mark of the cutting wheel, but that's all right. What we're mainly want to inspect here is just, this is the inner race. We want to make sure that it has the same polished looking edge as the outer race did. So if we look all right down in there, it's all nice and shiny in this little trough called the bearing race. There's a little teeny tiny bit, there's like a very, very beginning of some hardening, like going away right in here. I don't even know if the camera can pick that up. I'm not talking about that tool mark right there. Don't look at that. Look at the center inside here. There's some very, very, very minor pitting. This is like 99.9% good. And then this outer race is 100% good. All very good news, because it means that the engine isn't failed because we have a failed bearing that started to come apart and then send shrapnel through the oiling system and get metal everywhere, on the pistons, on the main bearings, on the connecting rod bearings, on the camshaft bearings, everywhere. So that did not happen, so that's good. So we are just gonna proceed and put a new LN Engineering IMS bearing in this car, and it's gonna be off to the races.